Fire Engineering Radio and to our show Pride and Ownership, the Love for the Job. I'm your host, Chief Rick Lasky, and a couple quickies here before we move on with our guest today. Keeping Tradition Alive, our annual Pipes and Drums and Honor Guard Symposium that we hold here in Louisville now, was another great hit. We bumped the numbers up from 250 to 350, and we maxed out with that, and then the instructors, about half the group was there from last year. And if you want to experience the brotherhood, if you want to experience honor, you want to experience some of the tradition, what an incredible couple days. We hosted the National Honor Guard Academy with the group from Florida. Doug Schwartz and his guys did an unbelievable job. The whole thing. If you're looking for any information, again, give us a call or send us an email. We'll steer you in the right direction. And keep in mind, this is for brand new Honor Guard members, brand new pipers and drummers. The classes they have set up are for brand new drummers that have never held the stick before, and the same thing for those just starting out on a chanter for the pipes, and then all the way through advanced. So there's something there for everybody. We try to keep the cost as minimal as possible. Great sponsors, great evening. Go to YouTube if you're looking for some video clips of Keeping Tradition Alive, and you can see the nighttime mass band and the Honor Guard competitions, 150-something pipers and drummers, and just a wonderful, wonderful time. Our guest speakers, obviously, we got Chief Bobby Halton from Fire Engineering, our editor-in-chief, to commit to being our keynote every year. We had Chief Ron Sarnicki, the Executive Director of National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, did an incredible job. Wendy Norris, it's just the group has been incredible. And we're going to get Wendy on the show here as well. We'll talk more about Wendy later and what she does for the Texas Line of Duty Death Task Force, and she's an incredible lady, incredible chaplain, and does a great job for us. Next year's dates real quick, May 13th and 14th, 2010. May 13th and 14th, we're all set and already moving and planning things for that, so get a hold of us. We often talk about the brotherhood on this show, and really hit on the traditions of the fire service and what we're all about and why we even got into this, and trying to get things kind of back to where they were. And I've experienced a couple things lately that just, every now and then you get the little tweaks that pump you up. And unfortunately, we had one of our firefighters here, Kyle Allen, and if you've done anything with our Fools group, the Hot Fools here in Louisville, Texas, you'll know Kyle. If you've ever been to a fundraiser, you'll know Kyle. If you've ever been to anything associated with the brothers and sisters of the fire service and what makes your heart pound in your chest about what we do, you'll know Kyle. Kyle had some surgery a while back and with some complications not too long ago, and some of our guys went to check on him, and he ended up taking a turn for the worse. But I know you can call it a miracle. We went from reviving him to he walked into my office the other day, and he's doing much better, and he's on the road to recovery. We're going to get him back riding the engine really soon. The guy stepped up, did a blood drive. The Honor Guard stood post with he and his family 24 hours a day at the hospital. The brothers and sisters really, really stepped up, and it was an incredible thing to see. It's just the brother. In fact, Kyle, of all people, was taken back by it because he just, he's done it, but when you're the one receiving it, there's always that awkward feeling that why is all this about me, and you forget what the brotherhood's all about. Which brings me to my next little deal here is I recently taught a class in Davenport, Iowa. If you're ever passing through the Midwest, what a great city, and what a great group of firefighters in that area, especially with that city. They had, I think, the oldest firehouse west of the Mississippi, which I wanted to stay there. This thing was awesome. A lot of history in the city there. Just great people, and again, I can't say enough great things about the Davenport FD. One of their captains, Captain Bob Juarez, back on June 12th of 2008, they were fighting a fire in their downtown district, right off the Mississippi River there. This was after the flooding. It was raining hard, and he and another firefighter operated on the ladder at a commercial building going, I think, a 2.5 they were working, and lost his footing and fell from the ladder about 20 feet and ended up paralyzed about mid-level down. And Bob, this is a 25-year veteran of the Navy Reserves. He'd been at a department a long time there, 44 at the time of the injury. very, very well liked and respected. The guys just talked about those that worked for him as a captain, that he's the kind of captain you want to go to work with and you want to crawl down a hallway with. And, this is one of those things. After I got done teaching a class, they took us to this home, and I like, this is nice. We're at this place, and I realized when we pulled up that this was a housewarming. They had built through the community, through donations, it's unbelievable. The community and the fire department came together, built him a home that is all, if you will, handicap accessible. It brought you to tears. Several times I was walking, and I'm walking into other rooms going, I got to get away because I don't want to sit here and cry. And Bob, the Captain Bob, the captain, he's even overwhelmed with this, and you can understand why. And it just what an incredible example, not only of community support backing their fire department, but of the brothers and sisters, this whole fire service family stepping up. And I'm telling you, if you want to see how to do it, get a hold of Davenport FD. They will show you how to be a brother, how to be a sister. The men and women at the department were incredible, the community. And again, Google it, do your searches. You'll see unbelievable story about the brotherhood. Which brings me to my special guest today. I've been wanting to get Dr. It's either between Dr. Harry Carter or Chief Carter or just my brother Harry, but I've been trying to get Dr. Harry Carter on the show for a while, and this just worked out perfectly. I called him, and timing worked out well for him. He wasn't at a speaking engagement. But a little bit about Harry before we get going. He's a municipal fire protection consultant based in Adelphia, New Jersey. He currently serves as the chairman of on the Board of Fire Commissioners for the Howell Township Fire District Number 2 there. 26 years with Newark. That's where a lot of folks know him from. On the job there in Newark, New Jersey, he served as the chief of training, commander of the hazmat response team, and battalion commander. He also had a 38-year career with the Adelphia Fire Company in Howell Township, New Jersey. He serves right now as their fire company chaplain and was the fire chief there in 1991. He's been a veteran of the fire service for over 46 years, has written several books, co-authored several books, written over 2,500 magazine, web, and journal articles. First off, if you don't know Dr. Harry Carter, then you've been sleeping under some rock somewhere. But Harry's more than just Dr. Harry Carter and Chief Carter to me. He's my brother, and he was one of my sponsors on my petition to the Masonic Lodge, Lodge 201 here in Louisville, when I was petitioning to be a Mason. And I've asked Harry to come on the show, and we want to visit about the brotherhood and the parallels. And, well, we're going to get to that in a second. But first of all, Harry, welcome, buddy.
Thank you, Rick. It is indeed a pleasure to be with you this morning.
And Harry, one of the best conversations I had about the Masons, first off, we've always said you see the bumper stickers once in a while, ask me why or ask me how, because there's always that rule that you can't go out, the Masons don't go out and solicit, and they don't go out and look for members. People go to them. And we're going to get to a little bit of history there. One of the best conversations I had, Harry, about the Masons, about the brotherhood, and then into the parallel with the fire service was with you. I think we were on the phone for over an hour, and I hung up, and I looked at my wife. I said, she goes, she just said, who is that? And I told her, I said, I just had one of the best conversations about this. I'm so fired up. But before we get to that, and I usually ask, some of my mentors and some of the folks who have been in the fire service a long time, because everybody asks us, how did you get in? What made you get into the fire service in the first place?
Well, Rick, when I was a little kid, I went to the St. Peter's Episcopal Church in Freehold, and right across the street was the Freehold Firehouse. They had Engine 1, Engine 2, Monmouth Hose, and Goodwell Hook and Ladder in the house. And many times during the church service, the loud horns, which were stationed all over town, would begin sounding. And, of course, our priest, Father Garlick, would have to stop the service, A, because you couldn't hear him talk over the horns, and B, over the footsteps of a dozen guys that would be jumping up from various parts of the church and going out. And I said, wow, is this exciting or what? And then they fire up the 1930 Mac and the 35 American LaFrance City Service truck and the old 48 Mac. And, of course, I would try to get away from my father and duck out the back door and watch. And, of course, he'd grab me in the arm and say, sit down. But over the years, this would be the same group of people that brought Santa Claus off the roof. I said, this is tremendous. But at the time, I was just a kid. Well, as years went on, I went to school at the University of Pennsylvania on a scholarship, and I played football and discovered the concept of fraternities, drinking, and partying, which, of course, led to a speedy exit from the University of Pennsylvania. And during the Vietnam War, you were either in college, 4F, which was unable to serve, or available for military duty. So I didn't feel like carrying a rifle in the rice paddies of Vietnam. So in casting about, I said, let me try the Air Force. That looks to be a pretty decent group. And went to the recruiter, and the guy says, what do you want to be, kid? Well, I knew I didn't want to be in the Army, the Navy, or the Marines, or the Coast Guard. So I was looking through the book, and there was a picture of a fire truck. And I said, I always wanted to be a fireman. Well, I went to basic training. I went to fire school, did 4 years of firefighter in Alaska, the Philippines, Vietnam, and Arkansas. And eventually, when they changed the state laws to permit statewide residents to take tests anywhere in New Jersey, I caught on with Rawway for about a year and a half and then made it to Newark, where they, in those days, had a great many fires for younger people to attend. And there it went.
Well, and Newark's, and everybody, if some of the folks that come out of Newark, Mike Nasta, one of the chiefs there, Mikey's big with FDIC, fire engineering, and a very proud department, and very, if you know the guys, Harry, and I've met them, they're good firefighters. They're good firefighters, good folks.
Well, Rick, we came up out of a tradition. One of the old issues of the Municipal Fire Administration book, the long-ago predecessor of today's Managing Fire and Rescue Services, had Newark listed as one of the most aggressive interior fire departments in the country. And that's the tradition I broke into. Well, over time, your tradition needs to be modified because the buildings that we fought fire in when I was a kid, well, we burned them down. And they replaced them with this modern crap construction that they have out there now. So you have to be careful so that you can still be aggressive, but you must be very thoughtful in your aggressiveness. Very thoughtful.
Well, and that, I think that's one of the problems, and you and I were visiting on the phone the other day, is the fact that, and actually I wanted to talk after we talk about the Mesa a little bit about the whole safety and about, when we choose to engage and when we choose to, take care of, things outside. And I've told people before, we're a very safe, aggressive fire department here in Louisville. Our guys know when to go in, when to come out, and when not to go in. And I think that's probably the toughest decision, with maybe fewer fires and, hopefully Harry, some of the things that are offsetting that is that we've got people out there doing a good, decent job for us, teaching tactics and strategy.
Well, when you've got guys like Mike Nasta and the other boys from Newark that head out to FDIC, YJ, and Johnny Riker, you've got good people that practice these things every day, sharing what they've learned the hard way with people who may not have as many opportunities to practice what they are doing.
Right. And this is what's kind of scaring us, and I know it's got to send a little shiver through you once in a while, is where are we getting the next, wave of the Harry Carters and the John Salkas and, the Skip Colemans, and, we've got to start reaching out to some of our other officers that are out there that are experienced. They're out there. We just got to find them and get them there and get more people, I think, infused into the system, teaching and doing the things we need to make sure everything's taken care of.
Well, I write frequently about being a mentor and finding those people that you're speaking of, but I also practice what I preach. I have officially selected my replacement. Chief Rich Gasaway of Minnesota was notified shortly after getting his doctorate that at the age of 50, being 12 years younger than me, he is officially going to be my replacement, so he better start training up.
Well, and here's one of the things I kind of want to lead into here. You wrote one of your many articles. You wrote an article called Brothers Times Two, and that's what I kind of want to zero in here for a little bit. Is we start off by talking a little bit about the brotherhood and the fire service, and you hear that often. The brothers and the sisters of the fire service and the family. One of the most incredible experiences I've had in my life was becoming a member of the lodge here. Was becoming a member and again, not just because of what people saw in National Treasure and some of the other movies that are out there, but becoming a member of Lodge number 201 here in Louisville and meeting the brothers there. It's been an incredible experience. How did you get involved with the Masons?
Well, my father was a Mason. He was raised in Olive Branch Lodge number 16 in Freehold in 1966. That was after I had joined the Air Force. And he took his 3 degrees and became a Scottish Rite Mason and a Shriner. Well, over time, I would watch all of this going on, but I never had time to think about it because I was, getting my college out of the way and working 2 or 3 jobs to keep the family together as my kids grew up. And finally, in about, I guess it was 1997, I said, I've got the time now. And a buddy of mine, Joe Ryan, a retired battalion chief out of Newark, was a past master of Wall Spring Lake Lodge number 73 in Spring Lake Heights. And I expressed an interest in this, and then he began filling in all the blanks, as is our way. Yes. And it turns out that Joe's a past master of the lodge, I'm a past master of the lodge, and at the time there were about a half dozen of us from the Newark Fire Department, including my brother. My brother, the brother, was is still in the lodge. Now, the year I was master, unfortunately, we were an older lodge. I mean, at the age of 50, I was considered young blood when I joined. But we couldn't raise a new line, so my job during my year as master was to consolidate into Ocean 89. Well, I'll skip all of the archaic nuances of a consolidation to say, thank goodness it worked, because the other lodge moved into our lodge, which is a very old and ornate little building, and they sold their commercial property lodge for nearly $1 million.
Wow.
So we now have a very well-funded Masonic lodge, which over the last 3 years has had tremendous success recruiting. We're experiencing what one would call a resurgence. And in order to enjoy the resurgence, you don't look at the old numbers.
Right.
I mean, over time, I became a Scottish Rite Mason myself. However, I didn't quite have the time to get into the shrine. Well, when I was doing a magazine article on the Shriners Burn Hospital in Boston, I was asked by a brother who's chairman of their publicity group up there, could I find it in my heart to come up and do an article, which I did, and I was so thoroughly impressed that at the next opportunity, I became a Shriner. So I myself am a member of the Crescent Shrine here in New Jersey.
Well, but here, one of the things that I think a lot of people they're not aware of, I think, is, and I mentioned earlier, that the Masons don't go out and seek and go out and actively recruit like some of the other fraternities, which all followed, obviously, the Masons.
It is interesting, Rick, because one of the things you and I write about every once in a while is the problem with recruiting in the volunteer fire service, the problem with recruiting in the career service. Well, we're talking about problems when you can actively go out, solicit, determine your audience, target your message. Well, in the Masonic world, it's not a strict prohibition, but it's a generally accepted principle. However, I always had a sneaky little way of weaving an aura of thought into a conversation. And at the end of the thought, the guy said, or guy would say, that sounds tremendously interesting, Harry. What is this you're talking about? And I would say, well, this is the Masonic fraternity. And they said, that sounds interesting. Could you tell me more?
Well, and the first thing you asked me, I emailed you and then I called, and the very first thing you said, it was a Saturday, I think I talked to you.
I was outside Frank's Big and Tall, waiting to buy a new suit, and I sat there in my car with the air conditioner running for about an hour and change. and that was a great phone call. I remember it quite well.
It was, like I said earlier, it was a great conversation, and one of the first things you said was, well, Rick, are you asking me about the Masons because the rule is, I can't. And I said, yes, I'm asking you. Tell me about it. Why should I become one? And what's it going to do for me? And that was just between you and brother Chief Bill Killen and Otto, Billy Goldfetter's chief, and it was overwhelming. I couldn't wait to get going with it.
You mentioned an interesting name, my dear friend Bill Killen. When I was installed as master of my lodge in, it was December of 2003, Bill hiked on up from Maryland, and he met up with Steve Austin from Delaware and Jim Cubbage, executive director of the Delaware Firemen's Association, Volunteer Firemen's Association, and they came up. Now, Bill and Jim were in the room with me because only past masters can witness the installation of a master. Steve had never been a worshipful master of a lodge. But, here we were, brothers from up and down the East Coast together. Now, the next month, I drove down to Maryland, and I was a guest at Bill's installation at master of his lodge in Bowie, Maryland. It's a fraternity like none other.
Well, and Harry, one of our past masters here also was a retired fire marshal from Louisville, now the sheriff in Montague County, Texas, Paul Cunningham, and his brother is one of my senior 30-plus year battalion chiefs here, and Jerry Cunningham, great battalion chief. Paul described it like everyone else I talked to, Harry. He said I'm a better man for him, I'm a better person, I'm a better father, a better friend. I was a better firefighter. It has influenced my life like I can't really. It's hard to explain. He goes, it's been an incredible experience for me and my family, just what it's done for me as a man. Draw the parallels, if you would. What got the whole Brothers Times 2 thing?
The article Brothers Times 2 came to me as I was asked to be part of a Masonic fireman's ritual team. District 1 in northwestern New Jersey, almost up to the Delaware Water Gap, has a fireman's ritual team. And I was invited up by the district's deputy grand master to come up and be a part of the team. I had met Glenn Wilson at a number of events, and he knew my writing from a competing magazine, let's put it that way. And I was driving up there thinking about, a number of things. The ceremony, the being with the brothers up there, and also I was on a deadline for having to do my weekly column for my website. And then it hit me. Brothers Times 2. We did the complete Master Mason ceremony, both sections, in fireman's dress. Everyone that was a firefighter or an officer was in Class A uniforms, wearing our Masonic accoutrements wherever appropriate. And as you know, only the master of the lodge is allowed to be wearing a hat. But since he was a fire chief, it was a white hat with a gold badge. And as the evening wore on, I was impressed that I really only knew two people in the room, the district deputy and then the deputy from down in South Amboy area who was also a fire captain in the South Amboy Fire Department. But I was identified as a brother, and because I had sat lodge with the district deputy, I didn't have to go through the complete examination process and be approved. Once you sit lodge with someone, you can completely vouch for them. That's one of the keys to the Masonic world is the concept of trust. Now, a few weeks back, I wrote about how trust is evaporating out of the American society, but not in the Masonic world.
No.
We approach things on the square, we live by the plumb, and we depart on the level. Think about that. How many times before you were a brother did you hear somebody say something to you, well, on the level, and it just was, you thought something in society, when they really meant they were telling the truth, you said it's on the level. But that's how we in the Masonic world are instructed to live our lives as upright men. And one of the things that we like to say is that the Masonic world takes good men and makes them better. We like to be encouragers and promoters of our fellow man.
Yeah, and what's kind of funny is if you read, and the books are out there, so this is no secret, when they talk about the secret society, it's probably the worst kept secret in the world. when it comes to
you can go to the Library of Congress and find somewhere in the stacks every ounce and aspect of what we consider to be our secret ritual. We just don't go blabbing it ourselves.
Well, and Harry, we've talked about this as well. I can't go to a program, teach anywhere, to a conference, or attend a conference. As soon as you mention that, you know, if there's if there's 60 people in the room or 100, you'll get 5 or 10 people that'll come up at break and go, you know, what lodge do you belong to? Well, I belong to, and it's amazing how many firefighters, once you start visiting, because I had no idea, Bill, people, you know, we've talked about Jerry Nalis from Penwell Books, how many people actually are Masons that you don't even know, you know, really, unless you see a ring or a bumper sticker, or not even a bumper sticker, a little medallion.
Or a lapel pin.
Right. I mean, it's just amazing how many firefighters are into it. And I think once you, I know for a fact, once you get into it, the parallels, the brotherhood, the servantship, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Well, one of the things we are charged at in the closing ceremony of the Masonic Lodge, the full closing in New Jersey, is to remind an errant brother of his failings and help him to correct his mistakes. Meaning, we are a team. Now, you know how often I write about teamwork.
Right.
I mean, there's no aspect of the fire service or the Masonic world that happens without a team. Now, I want to tell you, Rick, my daughter, Katie, who's in the fire company with me here in Adelphia, insisted that I get a copy of your book so that she could read it and help to improve herself as a member of the Brotherhood. She doesn't even use the word sister. Here she is. She's been a member since she was 14. She's 28. It's the Brotherhood. I mean, she's a full part of it. She chairs committees, and I just sit in the back of the room as an old ex-chief. And by the way, lest you folks out there think I'm not active, I'm still the first daytime driver. You know, I'm sitting here right now for this interview with my cell phone muted and my pager turned off. So in essence, Rick has taken 1/6 of the daytime response in Philadelphia. And the only way I would know is if they hit that big Q siren on the new pumper coming out the front door. But I just cannot stay away from the Brotherhood. It's the way I was brought up. One of the interesting things that Rick mentions about people that you run into that turn out to be Masons that you never knew. When you review how these people have lived their lives and interacted with others, you will see, without a doubt, that they are honest and upright members of the fire service and society in general. They're not going to give you the fast shuffle or the dirty deal. I mean, I could go on and on about this. As a matter of fact, the way I say it is, I was a Mason before I was a Mason, just by the way I was taught by my parents. And we have been accused of perpetuating past stereotypes and practices. Well, I'll tell you what, if being a Mason was good enough for George Washington, and was good enough for John Wayne, and was good enough for Harry Truman and Douglas MacArthur, I think it's sure as hell good enough for Harry Carter.
Oh, and absolutely. And one of the things I told you, one of the recently this past year exciting thing that went on in Louisville is we just actually opened up another firehouse, and I have a great mayor and council, and our mayor just retired after 20 years, and he wanted the PT Cruiser as a firehouse. He says, I want one that's new but looks old. So we put the bifold doors and the watchtower. But probably the neatest, the coolest thing we did, Harry, was the Grand Lodge. I appealed to my worshipful master here at the Louisville Lodge, Larry Fitzpatrick, who has just been incredible as and what he's just getting the lodge involved in the community. I said we've got to level the cornerstone. I have to have the Masons do it, and he was all over that. And the Grand Lodge came out, and we have the Grand Master that came out and conducted the ceremony is a very gifted speaker. It was incredible. And I stood there, Harry, and I looked at my boss, and I said, they've been doing this for thousands of years. What you're watching, they've been doing for thousands of years. And you talked about famous, Masons, past Masons. Ben Franklin if I've read everything right and understand it right, not only the father of the fire service, but Petition England was the first grandmaster, I believe, and brought the first lodge to New England way back when.
That would be 1717 or 1732. There's a date and dispute there, but the very language of the ritual that we perform dates, with minor fluctuations and changes, back to the period of George Washington and earlier. And were we allowed to share the words with you, you would hear the way that people spoke a couple hundred years ago. Now, one part that I can share, it's a public ceremony, is the beginnings of the Masonic funeral ritual, which is the solemn notes which betoken the dissolution of this earthly tabernacle have once again alarmed the outer door of our lodge, and another brother has been called to the land wherein our fathers went before. Now, we don't speak that way anymore, but one of the things Rick might not have pointed out, I will point out for him, all Masonic ritual is done by rote learning. There are no books. We do not read anything. When you open and close a lodge, any ceremony, any ritual, any initiation, passing or raising of members is all done because we know we've memorized it.
Well, and I think a lot of that led to some of the misconceptions that there was, you read that, and that's the first thing, Paul Cunningham, the first thing Bill, Chief Kill told me is this is not a cult. It's nothing like
No.
And
there's people out there in the world with websites calling us baby killers and heathens and cultists, and actually, it couldn't be more far from the truth, because if you look at the Masonic emblem, you have a square and compasses, and in the center is a G. Now, there are those who originally said that was geometry, G for geometry. And then there are others who will tell you that's G for God. But the Masonic world is so wide and so open that it actually stands for deity. History tells us that when Rudyard Kipling was raised a master mason in India late in the 19th century, there were 5 great books of light, one of which was the Holy Bible. 4 of the others were varying faiths practiced in India at the time. So widely held were the beliefs of the Masonic world in British India at the time.
Well, and from the Blue Lodge, you see everything from people, the Shriners and the burn centers and the hospitals and the retirement centers. When you look at everything that it's limitless what Masons do for their community, for the country. It's unbelievable. It's everything that you aspire to do in the fire service and more. It's incredible.
Well, next week, a number of us are going to be gathering in Hagerstown, Maryland, for a by invitation only fire safety summit to assess our 10 years of highway safety. The highway safety vest and how you operate on the highway. Well, I had wanted to get down there and attend lodge with my friends in Halfway, Maryland. I mean, there are a number of members of the Halfway, Maryland Firehouse, including the Chief Jeff Ringer, who are very active members of lodge. And unfortunately, their last meeting was this week, and then, like many Masonic lodges, or all in my area anyway, they go dark and are inactive during the summer. But there are people all over the country that I now know as brothers times 2. Great people, one and all. Jimmy Kimball down there in Halfway is more than just a Mason, 32nd degree Mason, Shriner. He's a jester. He's also a driver taking the elderly brothers for their treatment at various Masonic facilities, at VA facilities. We're a service organization. For example, in New Jersey, I'm a member of the 16th Masonic District, and our annual big event is assisting with the ARC Walk, the Association for Retarded Citizens, and for several years now, we've gone out and supported them with donations, given out the water for the walk, and all of that. That's our interaction in the community. And on Memorial Day in my hometown Freehold, Olive Branch, my father's mother lodge, will march in full Masonic regalia, just to show that they're a full part of the community of Freehold, New Jersey.
Well, and here's one. I mean, just recently, and I was talking again with Larry Fitzpatrick, our worshipful master here, and this lodge is very active in the community. They support. I mean, they do a big breakfast starting at 3:00 in the morning for police and fire once a year. They're out there. We were talking about what they're doing. They do everything, all the fundraisers for the hospital, and for every time a brother is sick, you know about it. And they talk about, Harry, this whole thing about no need by a member, no need by a widow. And what they were doing is they're actually going around. We had a bad storm come through here, a lot of damage. They were going all over within their membership and taking care of the widows of past members and their families. And a couple of people have said that. Paul Cunningham told me, he goes, you know what, Rick, no matter where I go, anywhere in this world, not just his country, I will never need or want for anything. I will always have a brother there for me. And I just found that absolutely, because that's the same thing. You show up at a firehouse, most places, some are struggling, but most places here, you show up as soon as they find out you're a firefighter, a fellow firefighter. You sit at the wedding, and you find out the person next to you, a firefighter. It's like you've known each other forever.
Oh, yeah, it's a common experience. Now, it's interesting you mention other countries. There is a tradition that says a past master is allowed to wear any past master's jewel, provided it's not from a clandestine or illegal lodge. Well, I have 3 Masonic past masters emblems from Great Britain in my collection. And when we have the major ceremonies at my lodge, I will select one, and I will wear it proudly on my chest, knowing that it was awarded to a gentleman in Knightsbridge, England in 1912, just prior to World War I. There's the brotherhood across time. I mean, when you look back at the history of America, most of the founding fathers who met in Philadelphia to sign the Declaration of Independence were members of the Masonic fraternity. It has been in existence. Well, it goes back in Britain for a few hundred years, and there are the stories that tell us anecdotally that we're tied to the craft guilds in the Middle Ages, and if you follow it logically all the way back, it was Masons who worked building King Solomon's temple back in the time before Christ. So we have a long history, part of which is provable, part of which is element of song and story, but even subgroups of the Masons, like the Knights Templar, they date back a long time. They date back to the Crusades. So, I like to think that I'm part of something that has a depth and range far beyond anything I can personally contribute to life. When I go to lodge, I like to just completely relax. Now, when I was in the chairs as an officer, it was tougher to relax because you had to know and do all of the ritual. But to sit there on the sidelines and enjoy the delivery of the ritual, it's like you're watching theater. Well-performed theater with the performances being given by people who love and appreciate and admire the past of what they do.
Well, and I know, obviously we can't get into some things, it's just, without talking about things we shouldn't, but I just tell people, when they do ask me, all I tell them is one of the most incredible things I've been through in my life was being initiated. And it's just, back to the family, what the Masons do for children.
Tune into Fire Engineering's website for part 2 of this podcast.